with our serenity prayer. Please say it while you're muted. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as we would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I will be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him in the next. Amen. Okay, so I'm so happy that Father Duncan is here today, and he's going to be talking to us and reading us some poetry, some spiritual poetry, from what I understand. Okay, Father Duncan.
Thank you for coming today. I just set up so you could see some of the poetry we're going to be doing. I'm also going to be playing some poetry, and Patty asked me to play a song, so I'm going to play a song on YouTube. But let me begin with my opening poem. I chose today several poems by Howard Thurman. Claire and I had the privilege of doing a clergy day. And during that clergy day, they used some of the poetry of Howard Thurman. And I thought, given we were doing racial reconciliation and social justice ministry tonight, I might just throw a few of them in there, and we can look at poetry over and against some of the ministry we're doing. Let's begin by taking just a moment and taking a few deep breaths. Inhale through the nose. Hold for a couple seconds and breathe out. Open unto me, Lord. Open unto me light for my darkness. Open unto me courage for my fear. Open unto me hope for my despair. Open unto me peace for my turmoil. Open unto me joy for my sorrow. Open unto me strength for my weakness. Open unto me wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me forgiveness for my sins. Open unto me love for my hates. Open unto me thyself for myself. Lord, Lord, open unto me. Amen. Our first poem is from a book. I think I've probably read some of these before. You know I love Mary Oliver. The name of the book is Thirst. Another morning, and I wake with thirst for the goodness I do not have. I walk out to the pond, and all the way, God has given us such beautiful lessons. Oh Lord, I was never a quick scholar, but sulked and hunched over my books past the hour and the bell. Grant me, in your mercy, a little more time. Love for the earth and love for you are having such a long conversation in my heart. Who knows what will finally happen or where I will be sent? Yet already I have given a great many things away, expecting to be told to pack nothing except the prayers which, with this thirst, I am slowly learning. how good it is to center down. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our mind seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashing, with noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. With full intensity we seek, ere thicket passes, a fresh sense of order in our living, a direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning in our chaos. We look at ourselves in this waiting moment, the kinds of people we are. The questions persist. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our days? What is the end of our doings? Where are we trying to go? Where do we put the emphasis, and where are our values focused? For what end do we make sacrifices? Where is my treasure, and what do I love most in life? What do I hate most in life, and to what am I true? Over and over the questions beat upon the waiting moment. As we listen, floating up through all the jangled echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. It moves directly to the core of our being. Our questions are answered, our spirits refreshed. We move back into the traffic of our daily round with the peace of the eternal in our step. How good it is to center down. Another Howard Thurman. Our little lives are big problems. These we place upon your altar. The quietness in your temple of silence again and again rebuffs us. For some, there is no discipline to hold them steady in the waiting. The minds reject the noiseless invasion of your spirit. For some, there is no will to offer what is central in the thoughts. The confusion is so manifest, there is no starting place to take hold. For some, the evils of the world tear down all concentrations and scatter the focus of the high resolves. We do not know how to do what we know to do. We do not know how to do what we know to be. Our little lives, our big problems, these we place upon your altar. Pour out upon us whatever our spirits need of shock, of life, of release, that we may find strength for these days, courage and hope for tomorrow. In confidence, we rest in your sustaining grace, which makes possible triumph and defeat, gain and loss, and love and hate. We rejoice this day to say, our little lives, our big problems, these we place upon your altar. Joy Unspeakable by Barbara A. Holmes. Joy unspeakable erupts when you least expect it, when the burden is greatest, when the hope is gone. After bullets fly, it rises on the crest of impossibility. It sways to the rhythm of steadfast hearts and celebrates what we cannot see. Messenger by Mary Oliver. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums. Here the calm deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still not half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, and the pasture, which is most rejoicing, since all the ingredients are here, which is gratitude, to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, a mouth with which to give shouts of joy to the moth, the wren, to the sleepy dug-up clam, telling them all over and over how it is that we will live forever. Invitation to Brave Space by Mickey Scott Bay. Listen, together we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds in this space. We seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. So I wanted to take a little break here and just see, what did you think? What did you like? Any comments?
I liked all of them, actually. In particular, I liked the little, what was it? The little our little lives. I like that one a lot. And Howard Thurman is really terrific, isn't he? I liked his as well. And this last one that you read was interesting, being the brave space rather than a sacred space or a safe space.
So that leads me to the question, which I'd like everybody to give a shot at. What is your brave space? You can unmute yourself and give it a shot. There's no right or wrong answers.
I think my brave space is, when you're going through something in your life and you have to be strong about it and feel the fear and do it anyway. I think that is my brave space.
I would agree with you. I wouldn't say it is so much a physical place. I would say it's more of a faith space.
Exactly.
I would say that. No. Yeah, when you are in meditation and you feel that you are closer to God, any meditation. So that it feels.
My brave space at times is in preaching. And this week, it's chapter 17 of John's Gospel. Jesus is just about to be executed. He knows he's going to the cross, and he knows what's going to happen to him because he's in Jerusalem and he sees the crosses, he hears the screams. He knows what's going to happen, and yet he puts his life in God's hands. And that's going to be what my sermon is about today, is knowing at times what's ahead. I think Patty was saying this, and being able to just put yourself in God's hands. And I see people like Mary Simon again and again come into the space of Alzheimer's units, nursing homes, hospitals, and being in the place of her former husband, and being able to really tell people, this is in God's hands, you're okay. That's, I think, my brave space, Mary's place.
I think, a brave space is any space where I'm willing to take a risk and I'm in a situation where I'm not necessarily comfortable, but I'm there and I'm willing to allow myself to be a little uncomfortable. And that can be a lot of different places because, when you're visiting people in hospice, you never really know what you might be facing. And that can be sometimes a little uncomfortable, there's that uncertainty there, and you take the risk and you face it, and you just allow God to kind of allow God to carry me through that. For me, just going through the process of moving ahead in seminary to be a deacon, that whole process is a risk. And there's a lot of times when it's very uncomfortable because, I'm learning and growing, and, there's things I don't know. And so it's a place of discomfort, but also there's a safety in it too, because I know that my connection to God is strong and God is carrying me. So if I get anxious or uncomfortable, I know that I can lean on God.
After all, he is the only one that can see us through, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I think my brave space is sort of a combination of what you were all saying, doing something that makes me uncomfortable, but doing it anyway, and taking a big step, not knowing how it's going to turn out, such as adopting a baby, which is a huge, huge thing to undertake, and just trusting that it will all happen and that God will see me through it.
Gladys?
I kept saying the Our Father driving out to Patchogue to see my niece and my sister. And my sister said to me beforehand, please don't cry. And I didn't cry. The second time I went, I did the Our Father many times going. And I really needed God's strength to see her in the state she's in. And when I came home, a friend called and said, you know what? It's really in God's hands. You're going to have to let go. And I believe that it is in God's hands. It's gone on too far, too long. So thank God I have my faith.
I'm struggling. I'm not sure I have a brave space.
Well, that's a brave place to be.
I don't know.
I'm going to play something, I think. Patty asked me to play a song, and I'm going to play something you probably weren't expecting. So I'll share with you a poem. Let go of your worries and be completely clear-hearted, like the face of a mirror that contains no images. If you want a clear mirror, behold yourself and see the shameless truth which the mirror reflects. If metal can be polished to a mirror-like finish, what polishing might the mirror of the heart require? Between the mirror and the heart is the single difference. The heart conceals secrets, while the mirror does not. This is love, to fly towards a secret sky, to cause 100 veils to fall each moment. First to let go of live, in the end, to take a step without feet, to regard this world as invisible, and to disregard what appears to be the self. Heart, I said, what a gift it has been to enter the circle of lovers, to see beyond seeing itself, to reach and feel within the breast. So I'm going to play a poem for you. Let me just get it reset up.
This is a piece I wrote called Inevitably Everything is Waiting for You. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone. As if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. As if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely, even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you courage. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you, and the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything, everything, everything is waiting for you. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone. As if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely, surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you courage. Alertness. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you, and the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness, and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing, even as it pours you a drink, The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything, everything is waiting for you. This is a piece.
I like that particular piece, and I'm a big fan of David White. An easy one to pick out. He reads poetry so well, and so that's one of the ways, if you like poetry, is just to find your favorite poet and listen to them. I'm going to play a piece that he played, and he'll be speaking about it a little bit. I'm not going to play it all the way through.
This oceanside Verbo is about to become the backdrop for an unforgettable vacation memory.
The possibility of going on for 3 more days to
TED Talk.
the youthful perspective on the future, the present perspective on the future, and the future mature perspective on the future. I'd like to try and bring all those three tenses together in one identity tonight. And you could say that the poet, in many ways, looks at what I call the conversational nature of reality. And you ask yourself, what is the conversational nature of reality? The conversational nature of reality is the fact that whatever you desire of the world, whatever you desire of your partner in a marriage or love relationship, whatever you desire of your children, whatever you desire of the people who work for you or with you or your world, will not happen exactly as you would like it to happen. Yeah. But equally, whatever the world desires of us, whatever our partner, our child, our colleague, our industry, our future demands of us, will also not happen. And what actually happens is this frontier between what you think is you and what you think is not you. And this frontier of actual meeting between what we call a self and what we call the world is the only place actually where things are real. But it's quite astonishing how little time we spend at this conversational frontier and not abstracted away from it in one strategy or another. I was coming through immigration, which is quite a dramatic border at the moment into the US last year. And you know, you get off an international flight across the Atlantic, you're not in the best place. You're not at your most spiritually mature. You're quite impatient with the rest of humanity, in fact. So that when you get up to immigration with your shirt collar out and a day's growth of beard, and you have very little patience. The immigration officer looked at my passport and they said, "What do you do, Mr. White?" I said, "I work with the conversational nature of reality." And he leaned forward over his podium and he said, "I needed you last night." And I said, "I'm sorry, my powers as a poet and philosopher only go so far. I'm not sure I can." But before we knew it, we were into a conversation about his marriage. Here he was in his uniform. And the interesting thing was he was looking up and down the row of officers to make sure his supervisor didn't see that he was having a real conversation. Yeah. But all of us live at this conversational frontier with the future. I'd like to put you in the shoes of my Irish niece, Marlene McCormick, standing on a cliff edge on the western coast of Spain, overlooking the broad Atlantic, 23 years old. She's just walked 500 miles from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port on the French side of the Pyrenees, all the way across northern Spain, on this very famous old and contemporary pilgrimage called the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, the path to Santiago of Compostela. And when you get to Santiago, actually, it can be something of an anticlimax because there are 100,000 people living there who are not necessarily applauding you as you're coming into town. Yeah? And 10,000 of them are trying to sell you a memento of your journey. Yeah? But you do have the possibility of going on for 3 more days to this place where Marlene stood, called in Spanish Finisterre, in English Finisterre, from the Latin meaning the ends of the earth, the place where ground turns to ocean, the place where your present turns into the future. And Marlene had walked this way. She just graduated as a 23-year-old from the University of Sligo with a degree in Irish drama. And she said to me, "I don't think the major corporations of the world will be knocking on my door." I said, "Listen, I've worked in corporations all over the world for decades. A degree in drama is what would most prepare you for the adult corporate world." But she said, "I'm not interested in that anyway. I don't want to teach drama. I want to become a dramatist. I want to write plays." So I walked the Camino in order to give myself some courage, in order to walk into my future.
And I said, what was the most powerful moment you had on the whole Camino, the very most powerful moment? And she said, I had many powerful moments, but you know, the most powerful moment was post-Camino, was the 3 days you go on from Santiago and come to this cliff edge. And you go through 3 rituals. The first ritual is to eat a tapas plate of scallops, yeah. Or if you're vegetarian, to contemplate the scallop shell. Yeah. Because the scallop shell has been the icon and badge of your walk, and every arrow that you have seen along that way has been pointing underneath a scallop shell. Yeah. So really, this first ritual is saying, how did you get to this place? How did you follow the path to get here? How do you hold the conversation of life when you feel unbesieged, when you're unbullied, when you're left yourself? How do you hold the conversation of life that brings you to this place? And the second ritual is that you burn something that you brought. I said, what did you burn, Marlene? She said, I burned a letter and 2 postcards. I said, astonishing, 23 years old and you have paper. I can't believe it, you know. I'm sure there's a Camino app where you can just delete a traumatic text, you know, and it will engage the flashlight, imbue it with color, and disappear in a firework of flames, you know. But you either bring a letter or you write one there and you burn it. And of course, we know intuitively what is on those letters and postcards. It's a form of affection and love that is now no longer extant. Yeah. And then the third ritual, between all these fires are large piles of clothes. And you leave an item of clothing that has helped you to get to this place. And I said to Marlene, what did you leave at the cliff edge? She said, I left my boots, the very things that I walked in, actually. They were beautiful boots. I loved those boots, but they were finished after 7 weeks of walking. So I walked away in my trainers, but I left my boots there. She said it was really incredible. The most powerful moment was the sun was going down, but the full moon was coming up behind me. And the full moon was illuminated by the dying sun in such a powerful way that even after the sun had dropped below the horizon, the moon could still see that sun. And I had a moon shadow. And I was looking at my moon shadow walking across the Atlantic, across this ocean. Yeah. And I thought, oh, that's my new self going into the future. But suddenly I realized the sun was falling further. The moon was losing its reflection and my shadow was disappearing. The most powerful moment I had on the whole Camino was when I realized I myself had to walk across that unknown sea into my future. Well, I was so taken by this story, I wrote this piece for her. We were driving at the time we got home. I sat on the couch, I wrote until 2 a.m. Everyone had gone to bed, and I gave it to Marlene at breakfast time, and it's called Finisterre, for Marlene McCormick. Yeah. The road in the end, taking the path the sun had taken. The road in the end, taking the path that the sun had taken into the Western Sea. The road in the end, taking the path the sun had taken into the Western Sea. And the moon rising behind you as you stood where ground turned to ocean. No way to your future now except the way your shadow could take walking before you across water, going where shadows go. No way to make sense of a world that wouldn't let you pass except to call an end to the way you had come. To take out each letter you had brought and light their illumined corners, and to read them as they drifted on the late western light. To empty your bags, to sort this and to leave that, to sort this and to leave that, to promise what you needed to promise all along, and to abandon the shoes that brought you here right at the water's edge. Not because you had given up, but because now you would find a different way to tread. And because through it all, part of you would still walk on, no matter how, over the waves. Finisterre, for Marlene McCormick. Now,
So I wanted to give you that piece. Some of you know that I have walked the Camino to Finisterre. And I love the way David White uses poetry to sort of describe, to have a conversation about things that matter. And that's one of the things I love about poetry, is that you can read book after book after book, but if you love poetry, you will find something that matters to you. And so to me, I've done that trip. I know that feeling. I've left things. I've burnt things. They also sing. There was a big band there at Finisterre. It was just remarkable. And David White captures in a poem that moment that was vital in my life. And as you know, right now I'm doing a virtual Camino. In about half an hour, I'll be walking 4 to 6 miles, as far as I can get by our meeting tonight. But poetry matters. It has a conversation with what matters to us. And so I've never been a poet myself. I've never been one to write much poetry, although I've tried to write poetry. But it is an art form that I love. And I hope that you'll take a moment to find some poems. I think last time I did some Robert Burns. There's a day, January 25th, when Scottish people get together and have a little haggis and a little single malt whiskey, and they read poetry for the whole evening. Person after person just comes up and reads poetry. Why is it that the Scottish bard is remembered to the point that there's tears in people's eyes as they read poetry? Because it touches an aspect of their life that perhaps they had forgotten, or touches an aspect of their life that they need to see in the future. I think that's what David White was talking about there. As someone finishes school up, Claire, I was thinking of you when I was looking at that. As you go through process, you will get to Finisterre. You will get to the place where the road ends and where the ocean begins. And when you think about it, it's a place that we all come to. And I love the way poetry can describe something like that. So I wanted to leave the last 10 minutes for questions or poetry that you have, or some thoughts you have on the Camino or David White or one of the poems I had. I might even do one of those tonight, Claire.
Yeah.
Did you like those Howard Thurman ones?
Yes, I did. I don't know if it was Our Little Lives, but there were a couple I made a note of. And I put a star next to Our Little Lives. But I really liked Everything Is Waiting for You by David White. And the line that struck me was doors invite you and frighten you. And I think that is a very kind of a thrilling place, to be just on that cusp of, there's a door there, and it's like what's on the other side is so exciting, and I want to move toward that, but at the same time it can be so frightening, but you still move toward it. So I love that. That was beautiful.
Reminds me of racial reconciliation, where we are right now, right? We're right at that door. Anybody else, your thoughts?
I loved all of them. I too love poetry, and in fact, I did buy a book of famous poets. So it's a, a compilation of different poets. I wish that I would have brought it here with me so I could show it to you, but it's inside. And I don't have a favorite poem, but I also do like Maya Angelou. I liked her poems very much.
Well, if you like nature, you'll like Mary Oliver. And so each poet, if you like to struggle, I recommend T.S. Eliot. If you like to struggle with poetry, if you like to, just read it again and again and again, and it makes no sense to you whatsoever, and you have to actually go to a source to give you a clue about what they're even talking about. But as you get into it and as you learn and as you study, it gives you sometimes a glimpse of the past. For me in the 1920s, people say that we're entering the 1920s again. Have you heard that? That we're going through a really tough period, World War I, and then we're going into the roaring 20s. That's what people say right now, that this is going to be a crazy year once people can get back together. Everybody's going to want to go vacation. Everybody's going to want to go and enjoy life a little bit, because it's been such a struggle for us. And
we go from the World War I into the roaring 20s, where everybody is just jubilant and out there and at the speakeasies and dancing and feathers in your hair. And then you go the next decade, we're in the Depression. So there's just this
bam. So I like the history part of it, although I find when you go into history, like T.S. Eliot, and everything was so religious back then. If you go into poetry of old, like art of old, have you ever gone to a museum and you go, oh my goodness, there's like 10 rooms of Bible pictures. I remember as a kid going to, I was like, didn't they have anything else to draw about but Jesus? But poetry is like that too. There's a lot of good poetry, T.S. Eliot being one. But there's good poetry all over the world. And I don't think it's hard to get into. I was going to play something from the Dead Poets Society. Did anybody ever see that movie? It was a fascinating movie. It was a fascinating movie where, kids were just doing rote learning, and he's talking about this guy Pritchard and how, there's an axis by which you can judge how good a poem is, and all these things. And he just says, rip the pages out, just rip them all out, forget about it. And then he goes on to teach the kids what's important with you. And then there's all this drama in their lives, but they find poetry. It was an interesting movie if you ever have time to play it again. Other thoughts, Claire?
I wanted to say about that Rumi music. That was there was a hauntingness to it, and a movement that just, I don't know what you were thinking, Christine, as a musician, but there was this undercurrent, this whole kind of a bass line that sort of stayed with it the whole time. And as everything is kind of moving above it, that bass just kind of grounded you in this flow. It was really, you have to close your eyes and listen to it. But I kept hearing it.
As close to poetry as I could find.
Musical poetry.
It was beautiful.
I don't think we listen to enough of that kind of music. And I think, maybe that would be a good thing from time to time.
Have you heard a really good Sufi chanter? I mean, it's great stuff. I've heard bad Sufi. I'm not too keen on that, but a really good Sufi chanter is just, it's like, I don't know, it's like so soothing to your soul. It really is. And then reading the poetry. and getting a different perspective on it. I love to go back to stuff like that. Any other thoughts? All right, everybody, then I think we will call it a day. We're going to end in a prayer, and I am going to pray for you.
Thank you.
Let's just end as we began, taking a number of deep breaths, breathing in for 3 or 4 seconds, holding for 2, and then breathing out nice and slow through our mouths for 4 or 5. Gracious God, we give you thanks for our spirituality group. We give you thanks for Patty and all those who take an hour together once a month to experience a different type of spirituality. Lord, we ask you to draw us near through poetry, through music, through all the different ways you have that we might be intimate with you. Lord, help us to know your abiding love and to share it especially with the ones we love, with our families and friends and neighbors, with those at St. John's. And on this day, I ask especially for protection. Surround those that are here with you today with your Holy Spirit. Send your healing grace upon them. Heal everything that needs to be healed in their minds and in their bodies. Lord, sanctify them, make them holy because they love you and want to draw close to you. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, everybody. I think you could stop the recording if you like, Claire. Appreciate it.